Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Ordinary Council meeting on the 24th of January 2022. 1. Meeting opening. 1.1. Attendance. Any apologies, Mr. Benny?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Apologies from Councillor Lana Formoso and Councillor Bob Milkovich.
Thank you, Mr. Benny. Item 1.2. Acknowledgement of traditional owners of this land. Council acknowledges the traditional owners and custodians of this land, the Bunurong people, and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, while also recognising their deep and continuing connections to climate, culture and country. We also pay our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and their elders and acknowledge their journey. Item 1.3, offering of prayer. As part of Council's commitment to recognising the cultural and spiritual diversity of our community, the prayer this evening will be offered by Reverend Father Jean Mawal from the St Paul Antiquon Orthodox Church, Dandenong, a member of the Greater Dandenong Interfaith Network. This evening, Councillor Garrard will read the prayer. Thank you, Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mayor. O Lord Jesus Christ, our God, who in your mercy and loving kindness regards the prayers of all who call upon you with your whole heart, incline your ear and hear our prayer, now humbly offered to you. Be mindful, O Lord, of all civic authorities, of our armed forces, of our elected council members, of all those who lead and serve in the city of Greater Dandenong, and of this city in which we dwell. Grant us peaceful times that we may lead a calm and tranquil life in all godliness and sanctity. Be mindful, O Lord, of our parents, our brothers and sisters, our relatives and friends, and all who are near and dear to us, and grant them mercy, life, peace, health, salvation and visitation, and pardon and remission of sins, that they may evermore praise and glorify your holy name. Be mindful, O Lord, of those who travel by land and sea and air, of the young and the old, orphans and widows, the sick and the suffering, the sorrowing and the afflicted, all captives and the needy. Upon them all send forth your mercies, for you are the giver of all good things. Hear our prayer, O Lord, for you are merciful and compassionate and love humanity, and to you are due all glory, honour and worship. Amen.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. We move on to item 1.4, confirmation of minutes of previous meeting of Council held on the 13th of December 2021.
Move, Councillor Dark.
Moved by Councillor Dark.
Councillor Tan.
Second by Councillor Tan. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? There is no opposition. I declare the item carried. Item 1.5, disclosures of interest. Mr. Benny.
None received, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Benny. 2, officers' reports, part 1, 2.1, documents for sealing, 2.1.1, documents for sealing.
Moved by Councillor Tan.
Moved by Councillor Tan, second by Councillor Foster. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? There is no opposition. I declare the item carried. 2.2, documents for tabling. 2.2.1, documents for tabling. Moved by Councillor Garrard. Second by Councillor Lim. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the item carried. 2.2.2 petitions and joint letters.
Happy to
Moved
move.
by Councillor Trong, second by Councillor Wong. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the item carried. 2.3 statutory planning applications. 2.3.1 planning delegated decisions issued November and December 2021. Moved by Councillor Long, second by Councillor Garrard. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the item carried. 2.3.2 planning decisions issued by planning ministers delegate November and December 2021. Moved by Councillor Long, second by Councillor Garrard. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the item carried. 2.3.3 town planning application number 7 Joffrey Street, Noble Park, planning application number PLN 21/0131. We have a mover, Councillor Garrard, second by Councillor Tan. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. Item 3, question time public. Mr. Benny.
Thank you, Mayor. The first question this evening is from Matthew Kerwin of Noble Park. What was the outcome of the Greater Dandenong Aboriginal Gathering Place feasibility study, and what are the next steps and timeframes? Mr. Fiddler could respond.
Mr. Fiddler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Matthew, for your question. This project is ongoing as consultation with First Nations people and other key stakeholders was challenging during the height of the COVID-19 restrictions, and participation rates were lower than expected. Many of the First Nations people that we consulted actually asked if we could extend the consultation period. Officers have also become aware of an opportunity to expand the terms of reference for the feasibility study, given that there's also some work being done by Parks Victoria and other stakeholders in the Police Paddocks region. The presentation of the First Nations Community Space Feasibility Report to Council is delayed, allowing these opportunities to be investigated further and appropriate consultation to take place. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Mr. Benny.
Next question is also from Matthew Kerwin. Has the Fotheringham Reserve Billabong restoration project been completed yet? And if not, when is it expected to start and end? Mr. Chinquagrana could respond.
Mr. Chinquagrana.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll provide a bit of an update overall, but there's currently a weed infestation in the Billabong, and this isn't part of that project. The focus of the project works is on the southern Billabong, and that includes silt removal and resetting the levels. The Billabong being referred to was inspected by a council officer on Thursday to determine the level of urgency for weed control works. The priority weeds present, both blackberries, will be undergoing control works throughout February to reduce the spread to a manageable level. And overall, with regard to the project, the detailed design and project plan was completed in 2021 and Melbourne Water funding secured through the Livable Communities and Livable Waterways funding stream. A preferred contractor has been shortlisted and is in the final stages of appointment. At this stage, we can confirm that the works will be completed prior to June 30th, but we'll need to await a more detailed timeline once the contractor has been appointed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chinquagrana. Mr. Benny.
Mr. Chinquagrana may have preempted the third question, also from Matthew Kerwin, but I will read it for completeness. There is a large infestation of exotic weeds, particularly blackberries, at the moment in the Billabong area of Fotheringham Reserve, Dandenong. Is that planned to be addressed as part of the Billabong restoration project? Or if not, when will it be addressed? And if Mr. Chinquagrana has anything further to add, he may do so.
Mr. Chinquagrana.
No, Mr. Mayor, that was covered in my description of the whole project overall. So, nothing to add.
Mr. Chinquegrana. Mr. Benny.
Our next question is from Tina Congus of Dandenong. When will the concept design for the Dandenong Community Hub be finalised? Mr. Fiddler.
Mr. Fiddler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Tina, for your question. Draft concept plan and business case was presented to Council in December last year. Additional work has been requested by Council to develop further spatial plans for alternative models. Council's consultant has been approached to deliver this work, which is intended to be presented to Council for review in either late February or March. We will update the Council's Community Hub's website as timeframes are confirmed, as it's COVID restrictions and also the summer holiday break. Our consultant has been on leave, so we're waiting to confirm those times. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Mr. Benny.
Next question is from Elizabeth Grasso of Keysborough. When is the finalised Greater Dandenong Biodiversity Action Plan and supporting documents expected to be publicly available on the website? Mr. Chinquegrana.
Mr. Chinquegrana.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, the final updates for this plan are underway, and they've been fed by the community inputs as part of the process. We'll be ready to put the final product to Council in June, and then the website presentation of that content will follow directly.
Thank you, Mr. Chinquegrana. Mr. Benny.
Next question is from Megan Mack of Keysborough. When is the tender for the Keysborough South Community Hub going to be released to the market? Mr. Chinquegrana.
Mr. Chinquegrana.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're currently still in a process of Green Star accreditation, which we don't have control over. So at the moment, we're expecting to go to tender in June, which will allow us to start construction in the following financial year. But it's difficult to give a more detailed timeline based on what we have control over at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chinquegrana. Mr. Benny.
The next three questions are from Leon Jorrison of Dandenong. They are on a similar matter. And what I propose to do is read all three questions and then allow Mr. Chinquegrana to respond to them all together. Question 7 is, Councillors, my question refers to the Council Officer's replies from the Public Question Forum held on Monday, December the 13th, 2021. The Council Officer stated that I was not part of meetings held between Council Officers and my swim club president. Incorrect. I was at one meeting with both present. But due to working night shift, I could not make others. Information from all other meetings was given to me. My swim club asked me to use this information to ask councillors questions in the public forum. Also, the council officer stated that I should lodge a submission. Why, when my swim club has lodged plenty of submissions through our club consultation discussion meetings with council officers? As council officers may dispute my opinions, can I please ask all councillors to look at all the meeting notes, including our club submissions, between our swim club and the council officers? Question 8 from Mr. Jorrison. Councillors, in reference to the council officer's reply of Monday, December the 13th, 2021, the council officer stated that the City of Greater Dandenong has 2 50-metre pools. But he also stated that only NPAC will hold swim carnivals and competitions. Councillors, our swim club's proposals, included in our club submissions, are a 10-lane, 50-metre pool with movable boom, our own swim club rooms, and a length of the pool grandstand size seating like Ringwood Aquanation, so that we can hold swim competitions. Councillors, why are multi-millions of dollars going to be spent on a new Dandenong Aquatic Centre that cannot hold swim competitions? And finally, question 9 from Mr. Jorrison. Councillors, a number of years ago on the original planning design, the new Dandenong Aquatic Centre was to be a standalone aquatic centre that was to be directly placed on the JC Mills Reserve. The latest design from 2021 shows the new Dandenong Aquatic Centre being joined together with the Greater Dandenong Hockey Club. The Dandenong Hockey Club already have their own club rooms and hockey pitch facilities. Councillors, can you please explain if you think it is appropriate that multi-million dollars is to now be spent on a joint venture when through our consultations we were told that all monies would be allocated and be used on the new Dandenong Aquatic Centre? As stated, Mr Mayor, Mr Chinklgrana may take all three questions and respond accordingly.
Mr Chinklgrana.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The results from the public exhibition of the Dandenong Wellbeing Centre draft design will be provided to Council as part of the consultation outcomes report. This will include minutes of the meeting between Council officers and the key stakeholders, and will include the Otters Swim Club president. Submissions and survey responses from other stakeholders and members of the public will also be included in that report. In addition to the formal consultation processes, Councils are briefed regularly about the Dandenong Wellbeing Centre project and are aware of the matters previously raised by the questioner. These matters outlined in the submission, including the proposal for a 10-lane pool, will be considered by Council as part of the consultation outcomes report and in the context of the aquatic strategy. The location of the centre at Mills Reserve has been endorsed by Council and incorporates a new sports pavilion to cater for the adjoining sports field and offers a range of synergies for the new centre. The existing Mills Pavilion is at the end of its life and is impacted on by the location of the new centre. This location and the decision has involved consultation with the Mills Reserve user groups, and it allows the existing Dandenong Oasis to continue to operate while the new one is under construction.
Thank you, Mr Chinklgrana, and thank you, Mr Benny. That's all.
No,
Oh, sorry, I apologise.
Yeah,
Mr Benny.
the next question is from Pam Naylor of Noble Park. When is there going to be a council decision on a local law on protecting trees on private land? And in general, what are the next steps and timeframes? Mr Bosman.
Mr Bosman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thanks to Pam Naylor. On the 22nd of November 2021, at its ordinary meeting, Council resolved to investigate a tree protection local law. Officers are currently in the process of undertaking the following: collating information gathered from past works on this project, reviewing a draft wording and criteria for the local law, further consultation with various stakeholders, including internal council departments and neighbouring councils, developing the process and timelines for taking this project forward, including the methods and timelines for community engagement. At this stage, officers are looking to brief councillors during March 2022 on the above outcomes. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Mr Benny.
The final question tonight is from Sylvia Mastrogiovanni of Dandenong. On page 185 of the agenda tonight, in Mayor and Councillor correspondence, there is mention of a letter of response to the Mayor from the Minister of Planning in relation to planning reforms in Greater Dandenong. What was the nature of the original Mayor's letter, and what was the nature of the Minister's reply? Mr Bosman.
Mr Bosman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and to Sylvia Mastrogiovanni. In October 2021, Mayor Angela Rong wrote to the Minister for Planning to highlight Council's concern with potential new planning reforms that may impact on the community's ability to be involved in the planning permit process. In response, the Minister for Planning wrote to Council in December 2021, stating that Council officers had the opportunity to be involved in some elements of the reform program, and that there will be future opportunities for Council to be involved in reform programs. However, the response did not directly address Council's original concern regarding the potential impact on community involvement in the planning permit process. Council officers will continue to advocate for the retention of community involvement in the planning process and to be involved in any future reforms. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman, and thank you, Mr Benny. Item 4, Councillors, Officer Reports, Part 2, 4.1, Contracts, 4.1.1, Contract number 2021-63, Cleaning of Gross Pollutant Traps. Moved by Councillor Garrard.
Second.
Second by Councillor Lee. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. .2, Contract number 212215, Springboard Reserve Amenities Refurbishment.
Moved, Councillor O'Reilly.
Moved by Councillor O'Reilly.
Seconded by Councillor Lim.
Second by Councillor Lim. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. 4.2 Other. 4.2.1 Keysborough South Community Hub Management Model Endorsement. Moved by Councillor Garrard.
Second by Councillor Lim.
By Councillor Lim. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried.
Mr Mayor, may I make a comment?
Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that we very much welcome the Community Hub Management Model and the progress that provides towards delivering a community hub. And I think it's important to point out that whilst it's council facilitated, it is very much community centred, community guided, and will be responsive to the needs of community with a very strong community development focus.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Item 4.2.2, Disability Advisory Committee, new members. Moved by Councillor Long, second by Councillor Foster. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? There is no opposition. The motion is carried. 4.2.3 Draft Minutes of the Springboard Community Hub Committee meeting, 30th of November 2021. Moved by Councillor Lim. Second by Councillor Trung. Are there any questions?
Just want to have a comment. Yep, just want to have a comment on the community hub. We're going to have a celebration on 5th of March between 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Just like all the councillors to attend that. Yeah, we're going to organize a very, very exciting one. And we had a great discussion last November regarding to that celebration as well, beside other agenda. Thanks for that.
Thank you for that, Ms. Lim. Is there any further comments or questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. 4.2.4 Draft Minutes of Multicultural and People Seeking Asylum Advisory Committee meeting on the 7th of December 2021. Moved by Councillor Garrard, second by Councillor Foster. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. 4.2.5 Leave of Absence. Councillor Bob Milkovich. Moved by Councillor Long, second by Councillor Cron. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? There is no opposition. I move the motion carried. 4.2.6 Reports on matters discussed at councillor briefing sessions and pre-council meetings, 29th of November to the 6th of December and 13th of December 2021.
Move, Councillor Dark.
Moved by Councillor Dark, second by Councillor Lim. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? There is no opposition. I declare the motion carried. Item 4.2.7, list of registered correspondence to the Mayor and Councillors. Moved by Councillor Trung, second by Councillor Garrard. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? If there is no opposition, I declare the motion carried. Item 5, notice of motion. There are none. Item 6, reports from councillors, delegated members and councillor questions. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I only have one question this evening. I just want to seek an update on the Wokta Reserve Master Plan update, including when the plants are intending on being planted and then the installation of the boardwalk as well. And then also just when we're expecting the first stage of the playground updates to come into effect. Thank you.
Mr. Cinquagrano or Mr. Bosman? I'm not sure who'd like to take that one.
Yeah, I think that'll be me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'll take that question on notice. There'll be give me a chance to find the latest details. We've obviously been not undertaking works during the industry shutdown. I'll follow that up and get back to Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mr. Chicograno. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I just want to have a couple of comments as well. As I'm sure you've seen in the media, former Councillor Amanda Stapleton of the City of Casey unfortunately lost her life in the last couple of weeks, or last week. Councillor Stapleton, for those who were aware and those who did know her, was a fierce advocate for her community. She had contributed a significant amount of time, often at the bequest and expense of her own life, to help council facilities wherever she can, whether that be local sports clubs, local community groups, from athletics to football. She was well regarded and had served quite well on council for a couple of terms with regards to the community, also sat on many different community advisory boards. Her election back to council was a phenomenal amount and a good rise in her vote as well, which showed how popular she was. Unfortunately, the impact that having an IBAC investigation has upon one person, and the pressure that was put on him, amongst other things which no doubt over time will come out, has put a significant amount of pressure and put her in a position which I'm sure nobody else would rather be in. Councillor Stapleton was a formidable person, a person I always sought a great amount of advice from, and she was always helpful at the ready to help with any regional issues that may come to hand. And I know she was very strong in the advocacy for the upgrade of Thompson's Road, which affected our municipality, and then also for the works on the Monash Freeway and other links as well, the push for the extension. It is a very great tragedy that she's been in a position where she is today, and I just wish whether we could please pass on a letter of condolences to her family. I know she's survived by her son Peter, who has and is based in full-time care, and by her father as well. No doubt that there will be some more events and some information coming up in the near future, but if we could please write a letter, pass on our regards, that would be greatly appreciated.
I'm happy to do that, Councillor Dark. Anything else, Councillor Dark?
Nothing further, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor. And I too would like to give my condolences to Councillor Stapleton's family. It is a quite a tragic loss. Would like to also wish everyone a happy or peaceful new year, and hope that everyone's had a safe and peaceful festive season. Thankfully, we were able to end the year with a number of events. Last month, it's great to be part of the Hemming Street launch of public artworks called Nourish Creativity and It Grows, and to have students from Dandenong West Primary School contribute to this creative piece was wonderful, and it's provided such great colour and further vibrancy to the Hemming Street area in the Garraman ward. I was also privileged to attend the Cornerstone Contact Centre and help with my fellow councillors in serving a fantastic Christmas feast to some of our most vulnerable residents. The volunteers that contribute to this, not just at Christmas time, but on a weekly basis, do an amazing job, and I just want to thank them. To also end 2021, I attended the New Year's fireworks at Dandenong Park. Given that we didn't have that in 2020, it was great to be a part of that, and to see the delight in the residents' faces, all the kids that really love to see the fireworks. I had some friends who live outside of Greater Dandenong attend with their children, and they offered nothing but praise for the amazing festivities, so it was fantastic. We've had 2 challenging years, and no doubt this year will continue to be filled with some uncertainty and fear about COVID and what lies ahead. But I'm hopeful that things will improve, and I strongly encourage residents to get their 3rd COVID vaccine, and of course get their 1st and 2nd if they haven't already. My question today, Mayor, is without notice. It was brought to my attention today that the pop-up vaccine clinic inside the Dandenong Plaza has been quiet and perhaps less utilised than the outdoor pop-up clinic that we had last year. I understand with the heat that it is ideal to relocate the pop-up clinic indoors, but I've been told that there is not much advertising of the change in location, and could the relevant officer look into how we may promote this further, given the visibility that we had with the outdoor pop-up clinic is now lacking? And could we consider placing some temporary signage outside the plaza to promote this a bit more? Thank you.
Ms. Bragg.
Thank you, Councillor, for that question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we've been in discussions with Monash Health about the move to the new location, and what a wonderful location it is, because it's got the air conditioning, it's got plenty of parking, it's got the cafe right outside. So really it's perfect for people. And they did just last week announce that they were doing the walk-up vaccinations for children as well. So we are pushing out those messages. But I take your point, and I will have another chat to them. We've got a group meeting tomorrow, so we'll look at getting some additional signage and information out about that one. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Bragg. Deputy Mayor Foster.
No, that's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Foster. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to reiterate what Councillor Foster just said regarding the great work of Cornerstone. Tremendously selfless individuals doing wonderful voluntary work there to support the community, and I just want to thank them. I also had the privilege of attending the New Year's Eve event, and I haven't been to an event with so much energy and excitement and goodwill for a very long time. That was a really memorable night, and I congratulate everybody that organised that and the community that turned up with all the energy and enthusiasm that they showed, and it left me feeling really positive about 2022. Once perhaps we get over this current wave of Omicron, hopefully things will start to pick up. Mr. Mayor, my first question for tonight is, can the relevant officer provide an update on the installation of the public toilets in Westwood Boulevard and Pencil Park in Keysborough South?
Mr. Chief Regrano.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we've now received all our approvals for the Westwood Boulevard toilets, and we'll be starting actually on site in February. The Pencil Park ones will follow very closely behind once we get them started. There's one more approval to come for those, but we're very close now.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Regrano. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mayor. My second question is, can the relevant officer provide an update on the proposed waste-to-energy facility at 70 Orndish Road, Dandenong?
Mr. Bosman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councillor Garrard. Councillor, on 16 September last year, a planning permit for the use and development of the waste-to-energy facility at 70 Orndish Road was issued at the direction of VCAT, and the applicant has 4 years from the issue of the permit to commence the development. Similarly, a works approval under the auspices of the EPA has been issued for the facility as well. So it's really now in the developer's hands to undertake the actions required to commence the development. The construction of buildings, etc., will be done under the supervision and authority of a private building surveyor, and that procedure does not include a third-party process. Council's planning officers have, and I've checked with my stat and the others involved, the council's planning officers have not had any recent contact from the developer regarding a commencement date. So that's about all I can update you on at this stage. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mayor. Next question, can the relevant officer provide an update on the council services that are currently affected by COVID-related staff shortages?
Mr. Benny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All of council is impacted by COVID, regrettably. So there's no one director who has any greater information than I can provide to you on this basis. And I thank you, council, for the question, because it's important that we get this information out as much as we possibly can to the community. Council continues to adjust on a daily basis to the impacts of COVID, and they do change on a day-to-day basis. But in terms of the impacts on council service delivery, the council's website continues to have up-to-date information on any changes, delays or disruptions to services. We will keep that up to date as soon as and as often as we can. And I apologise at the outset for any service implications for any resident of our municipality. We have had on 2 occasions the need to close the Springvale Customer Service Centre. Those decisions needed to be made on a short-term basis based on COVID implications. However, at the time, the Dandenong Parkmore customer service centres were able to operate at full capacity. The Walker Street Gallery is closed, but will reopen on the 10th of February. And the Drum Theatre is presenting performances at the moment within COVID safe guidelines. Both the Dandenong and Springvale libraries remain open on slightly reduced hours, and our aquatic facilities are open and welcoming people to them. All services are important, but it's essential that I inform of the implications for council's very important community care services. We are still delivering essential community care and Meals on Wheels services to our residents. To ensure those clients most in need receive the necessary services, we are prioritising personal care at this point in time. Council has written to all clients, and they are understanding of the situation and appreciative of the efforts being made to maintain services where possible. The health and safety of staff and, of course, the community, the clients, the customers of council remains a top priority, and we will continue to focus on that as we move forward. Once again, I apologise, council apologises for any inconvenience caused by service interruptions through these difficult periods. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Benny. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, Mayor, to the relevant officer, is the council currently in negotiations to lease the Chandler Road Reserve in Keysborough, or has a lease already been signed?
Mr Bosman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor, the negotiations are currently still ongoing with the state government. So no, a lease has not yet been signed. I do believe that there have been, let's say, a little bit of, there's information still required and some confirmations from the state government. We're pushing as hard as we can to get that lease finalised, and once done so, we would then be able to at least have the confidence that the open space there will become public open space for the long-term use of our residents. Hopefully we are close to getting the information that is required and the documents signed, and I will keep councillors updated as soon as that is done.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mayor. My last question. In the City of Greater Dandenong Climate Emergency Strategy 2020-2030 Action Plan, all immediate and short-term actions should have been completed. Has a progress report been released on how we are tracking, and if not, why not?
Mr Bosman.
Mr Mayor, Councillor, all immediate and short-term actions that have not been impacted by COVID have been completed, and that includes the climate change vulnerability assessment across a number of assets, adaptive capacity assessments to determine climate resilience across council's business units, various advocacy activities at state and federal government levels, and participation in the VECO power purchasing agreement to source 100% energy for council's electricity. So those have all been done, and I think you know that the VECO power purchasing agreement is a collaboration by 46 councils to buy green energy to fund the councils, or to provide that at an entirely sustainable manner. The small number of actions impacted by COVID are now expected to be completed by the end of this calendar year, and a summary of the progress towards targets and key outcomes is currently being finalised and is expected to be live on Council's website by the end of February, by the end of next month. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mayor. That's it from me.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Councillor Long.
Thank you. These are some of the events I have attended since my last formal meeting. 21st of December, I attended Cornerstone in the Baptist Church, James Street, Dandenong, to help serve a Christmas lunch to their clients. 31st of December, I attended a New Year's Eve celebration in Dandenong Park. It was great to see people, especially the children, enjoying themselves. The fireworks that went off at 9:30 that night were spectacular. And to see the excitement that they brought to the crowd was fantastic. An estimated 7,000 people were in the park on the night. I'd like to thank everyone that was involved in making that night a great success. On the 5th of January, I attended the Victorian Scout Jamboree in Elmore. There were over 3,000 scouts attending from all over Victoria. Because of the restrictions of COVID, no interstate or overseas scouts could attend. And I also would like to pass on my condolences to Amanda's family. I was the mayor at the same time Amanda was in 2012, and we would have regular lunch dates together, along with 5 other local mayors that were female. We'd take it in turns. So my deepest condolences to her family. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Long. Councillor Lim.
Thank you, Mayor. Just on the Thursday, the 9th of December, I attended Australia Day Award Assessment Panel meeting by team. On Thursday, the 16th of December, I attended Christmas dinner hosted by Springboard Shopping Centre Owners Committee. That night, they gave me a chance to give a speech regarding to my vision for Springboard Shopping Centre. My vision is just want to make Springboard a better place and a place of attraction, the most important. And I promised them in the very near future, I'm going to invite all of them to come together in the probably restaurant, every business owner in Springboard to come to discuss about how to make Springboard a better place. I need their feedback. And I told them that we need to work as a team, not me. Everyone come as a team to make Springboard become tourist attraction for their benefit, not for us. On the 17th of December, on the Friday, we had a meeting by team with Victorian Multicultural Commission and also our Dandenong Council staff and Mayor Jimmy Matty and myself, and also Mr. Martin Fiedler and also Tila Bulden, and plus other councillor, and also with Vivian Wing, and also from Thai Multicultural Commission. And we had a great discussion as well. They're willing to help us to pursue our dream to have multicultural Springboard Museum, and also plus other, festivals such as Songkran New Year, and for example, and plus gateway for different nationality in Springboard. And on Sunday, the 19th of December, I also attend the Vietnamese committee celebration post-COVID, pre-Christmas, New Year's. And on the 21st of December, I attend Cornerstone to provide food for the homeless. And also today I had a phone call from one of university students, asked me about Springboard Activity Center, especially what is my vision, what is the project in Springboard, any new project. And she come across with Springboard Boulevard. She wondered what's going on along Springboard Road, and she have a project for her assignments or something like that. I mentioned to her, give her a very good detail about what is Springboard Boulevard all about. Just iconic for Springboard, and just the face of Springboard, blah, blah, blah. And not just that, she asked a lot more questions about Springboard. For future of Springboard, I gave her all sorts from Springboard Multicultural Museum to become tourist attraction, not just locally, nationally, and nationally, and plus so on. And like probably the malls, or probably the arcade for Springboard Activity Center, musicians come to play on a weekly basis, the multicultural place, and Springboard Community Camp Plus, and so on and so on. She's really interested, and so on, and so many things, and she wouldn't mind. She asked me, would you mind if my mentor going to ring me to ask all those things? I said, I don't mind, and also she want to contact the communication manager that I mentioned to her, that I have a close contact with communication manager Omega that responsible for construct the Springboard Boulevard. And I said I will get the contact for her, in the near future. And the next one is the last 3 weeks, because the spreading of Omicron to our city, I have a lot of people query about how to prevent, how to get a booster, how to vaccinate their children between 5 to 11. I spent time on Facebook to explain to them, to give them a very clear detail about how to look after themselves, how to prevent the spread or something, and very high viewers. It's about 15,000 viewers each time. That's great for our city. And my first question is just my concern about our Springboard Activity Center. We have so much problem about our elevators. That's a lot of headache for me. They contact me very regularly, and myself facing that as well, because I walk up and down Springboard multi-level car park number 8 very frequently as well. Like happened like last Friday and Saturday as well. Friday and Saturday and Sunday, that 2 days. And when I rang that number that's on in front of elevator, I end up with somewhere else that I don't know what number all about, and that person had to understand what she's talking about. The noise, a lot of of noise that she can't understand, and she tried to pass it to someone else. After that, she rang me back to ring to someone else that I had no idea. But luckily, they fixed on time by Sunday afternoon. By Monday morning when I came, both elevators not working again. Everyone had to walk up and down to 5th level to 4th level, whatever. My point is just made very bad impression to our city, that why it happened very frequently, especially on the weekend, and also the busiest time of the week, especially Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Actually, very busy day at Springboard. And they had to walk up and down with young children, with elderly. How are we going to fix that problem? My suggestion can be have that number in front of the elevator, the number that goes directly to the mechanic or the technician. Therefore, they can fix the problem promptly rather than take a little while. And like today, by afternoon, 4 o'clock, I rushed to come for the meeting. It's still, the elevator is still not working. Any other way that we can solve this problem? Thanks for that.
Mr. Chikwagana.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we'll do some tests of that phone number, particularly if the comment about it not being clear. But it does need to go to a central dispatch location, because if it goes straight to the technician, they could be tied up with another job. So it's better that it does go to the central point where it can be then issued to the nearest technician. But I wasn't aware that the quality of the line was a problem. So I'll do some tests on that and see if that can be improved.
That is it from overseas, that central one, central service, is it from overseas or in Australia? Because the noise, you just could not understand what she's talking about, and she has very hard accent as well, very difficult to understand her as well. And at the end, she left the message for me to ring somewhere else. Yeah. I don't understand.
Okay. No, it's an Australian-based service, but look, I'm not sure about the amount of operators they have on duty. But let me follow that up and we'll do some test phone calls.
Yeah, I have a voice message from her. Thanks, Mayor. I have a voice message from her. I can forward to you probably soon. And the next one is probably my second question. Oh, thank you for you, actually, Mr. Gringo-Ghana. Thank you for your response this morning as well. When I rang you on your mobile phone, I didn't want to do at all. Honestly, it feels very bad for me to ring you directly, but I had no choice because a lot of people complained to me, face to face, in front of the elevator, why I had to ring you. Thanks for your, quick response as well. Thanks, Mayor. And my second question regarding to the beggars in Springboard, getting built up more and more. These beggars come to Springboard, make Springboard look very bad, and people complain to me, and they're very unhappy about this beggar. And like I said, I forward this text message to John and to whoever relevant officer and to Martin Fiedler as well. I read quickly for everyone to understand about these messages. It sounds very bad. He said 2 days ago, my wife's friend went to Springboard Shopping Center. She dropped her keys, car keys, on the ground, and one of these scammers picked up the key and told her they want $100. Then she can't have them back. Not sure which one it is, going to take more picture. Oh, he took a lot of pictures, sent to me, and show my wife friend. She got her key back when she told them she only had $20. Now she's scared to come to Springwell to do shopping. Not good. This scam should be taken off the street. Thanks, Joe. His name is Joe Kiss, I think. And he keeps sending me so more photo, and other people send more photo as well. Recently, a few days ago, another person said to me, said, today we got a lot of scammer again to Springwell. And I told those scammers as well, honestly, I went to talk to them face to face, please, can you go somewhere else because you have enough money from the central link government support you. Every week you get $700 or $800. Why you still do that? Make people very scared and very embarrassed. When I talked to that gentleman, a few people come approach me and said, that's good, make me feel like so hard to come to Springboard. I scare these sort of people. How are we going to dealing with this scammer? Any other way or any local law that we can fix these people?
Mr. Benny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Lim. I don't have an immediate response or an immediate answer, but I heard with concern your story, and I will discuss with various directors tomorrow as to what further and immediate actions we can take. There are undoubtedly individuals who need help and support. This may not be the way for them to achieve that, and we need to work with them to help them receive the support that they need. But over and above, a priority for the Council continues to be ensuring that the Springvale Activity Centre is a centre that attracts people and does not, in fact, distract them by the sorts of things that you've reported. So we need to deal with all issues, not just one or the other. We need to deal with them all. And we have proven that we can do that in the past in most centres, including Springvale, but of more recent times in Dandenong through the involvement and intervention of the Victoria Police as well. So we will take your question on notice and first thing tomorrow have a discussion about what steps and actions that we can take, and we'll be reporting that back to you and all councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Benny. Councillor Lim.
Okay, thanks, Mr. John Benny, and also thanks, Mayor. My final thank you is just would like to thank you to Johns and to Taylor regarding to musicians come to Springvale. And the gentleman, it's very exciting to hear that we had a good discussion with him. And he come to visit me personally, and I said I'm going to catch up with him in the near future, just sit down and talk to him about what sort of time frame that he can provide to us and some other musicians as well. And you already emailed to me regarding to the fund that the state government willing to provide as well to entertain our activity center. At least we can bring more visitors to come to Springvale. Thank you so much, Mr. John Benny and Tila Buden. And also, thank you so much to relevant officer that tried to take my question seriously regarding to the outdoor dining, that we built for free of charge. We installed free of charge for all business owners. And one of the bubble tea, they put all sort of signage, whatever, they stick everywhere. And now they fix, they clean up very nicely. Thank you for that. And my final one is about the tree. The tree looked beautiful, and so for some reason, the last couple of suddenly the trees that in a multicultural place and also in front of my pharmacy and at the corner, just become dead. The reason probably my thinking, probably no one probably watering those plants any other way, or anyone that look after those plants at all, or we just leave it until the time comes, we just change to different trees or different flower, whatever. Yeah.
Mr. Chinquegrano.
I think, Mr. Mayor, look, I'll have to take that one on notice. I'll talk to our open space people just to find out what the situation is with those trees and report back to Council Lim. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chingagrano, and thank you, Councillor Lim.
Yes, that's all for me. Thanks, Mayor.
Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I'd also like to convey my sorrow at the news regarding former councillor Amanda Stapleton, who, you know, in my experience, in all my contacts, she was a very friendly, helpful and collegiate councillor, and so I'm certainly sorry to hear that news. Regarding events I've attended, they've been mentioned. I've had quite a few issues with COVID in my household, which has prevented me attending events due to isolation requirements and so on. But one event I did attend was, as Councillor Lim mentioned, the Springvale Shopping Centre Owners Management End of Year Dinner, and there was quite an interesting revelation made at that meeting that surprised me, and I'd just like to mention it now to see if we're across it. But I believe the plan there at Springvale Shopping Centre and the Owners Management Corporation is to construct or create another roundabout. This is just off the top of my head, like another 100 or so paid car parks in that shopping centre, and it's going to be done like via this sort of prefabrication that like they bring in, and it's already sort of, and they just sort of assemble it a bit like Lego and that sort of thing, which is quite like a major announcement for sort of car parking capacity in Springvale, and it's a sort of joint project between Care Park, who we know are like who administer the ticket paid car parking in Springvale, and the Springvale Shopping Centre Owners Management Corporation. So just wanted to ask the officers, and this is all without notice to the officers, to the relevant officers, is like, have they heard of this yet? Would there be any permit required to, you know, create all these new car parking in Springvale Shopping Centre? And you know, if we're not if and when it is constructed, you'd think that adding such a large amount of capacity of car parking spaces would have traffic flow implications around the centre. So I think it would be important that council and, you know, the traffic officers and all that experience and advice is sort of involved before it all sorts of hits us. So now I just wanted to know to the relevant officers if they've heard of it, and, you know, how we could engage from here. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Bosman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councillor O'Reilly. This is the first I hear about it, Councillor, and I will consult with my colleagues in the activity centre, Kevin Van Boxtel. I'll speak to the traffic engineers. I'll find out if anybody else has had any heard any whisper of this, but it's certainly nothing that's come through the Planning Directorate at this stage. Let me make those inquiries, and I'll follow up with an email in response to yourself and copy the other councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you. That was all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. Councillor Tang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I just want to report a few events I attended to from the last council meeting. The first one, on the 15th of December, I attended the Meal Reserve Project Advisory Group to discuss about Dandenong Aquatic and Wellbeing Centre. On the 17th, I attended the Copas Park Interpretive Signage launch. Also, there's a soft opening of the Douglas Street Streetscape Noel Park project with the Minister Sean Lin, Mr. Lee Talamas, and yourself, Mayor Jim Amidi. And also, once again, I just want to thank the Victorian State Government and the Noel Park Revitalising Board for their contribution to these projects. So over the last few years, you can see now what Noble Park has been upgraded, transformed. It's so much better and more vibrant now than previous years. So thanks to their contribution with their financial funding as well. And on the 21st, I also visit the Cornerstone, which is a seafood serving lunch to homeless and with volunteers, to the vulnerable residents. So once again, thanks to the Cornerstones and all the non-profit organisations that's also, help the assist with the less fortunate weekly basis to provide them not just lunch. It's a place for them to socialize, to come together and have a sense of belonging. So thanks for all their great work. I got a few questions from my end today. First one, just following up with this is a question I asked from last year regarding to potholes, which hasn't been fixed yet. This is along Patterson Road, Springboard South, towards Springboard Road. Do you have any update on that yet to relevant officer? Thanks.
Mr. Chico-Grano?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I don't have an update on that. Let me follow that up and I'll prepare a response.
Thank you, Mr. Chico-Grano. Councillor Tan?
Thank you. And also just to the relevant officer, I would like to get an update on a few projects. First one, what's the progress on the NPAC Wellbeing Gymnasium construction, the Ross Reserve Sport Pavilions, and the Ross Reserve Synthetic Soccer Pitch? What's the time frame on those projects? Thanks.
Mr. Chico-Grano?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With the gymnasiums coming along nicely, so with the work is still progressing. We've obviously had a small shutdown over the Christmas period. That's proceeding well. The sports pavilion at Ross Reserve is, I think the roof work is underway at the moment. So we've got all the steel structure up. We've got the block work completed, and that's progressing quite well. And with regard to the adjacent synthetic sports field, that's about to start. In fact, I think they might be doing some work on site, but that's about to start. Yeah. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chico-Grano. Councillor Tan?
Lastly, just regarding, so what's the progress on the Springboard Boulevard projects? I've been advised by some resident that's concerned about there's disruption, along Springboard Road. Bank of Melbourne had to shut a few weeks ago because of the project disruption. Do you have any update on that yet?
Mr. Chico-Grano?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the most disruptive works have been completed. So that was the underground drainage work. So we're very pleased to have all of that complete. The central meeting's been removed and we've completed that surface. So there'll be much less disruption to traffic now, and obviously much less need for night works. But we're now starting on the curb and channel and the footpath area as part of that.
Thank you, Mr. Chico-Grano. Councillor Tan?
Thank you. That's all from me. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Tan. Councillor Trong?
Thank you, Mayor. I think that, if the council can involve to help, some ethnic elderly group or ethnic volunteer groups, because they need the red kit. That means the COVID test kits. It's now, I think that very hard to find out some place to collect them, and also with their lack of English, and they need to be helped. And the elderly people that get the kits as soon as possible. And council, does council have any way or any plan to help them?
Mr. Fiedler?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our community care is in contact with a lot of vulnerable, frail-aged and people with disabilities, often people that English is not their first language, providing assistance. I know that many of the health services are promoting advice as well in a range of languages. But if people contact us or one of the numbers that are on the Monash Health website, they'll be put in touch with someone, and if they need translation or interpretation support, those services are available. And again, if families or friends know of people that haven't had vaccinations or are a bit unsure of where to go and what to do, please encourage them to make contact either through our customer service or through our community care department, and we'll see what we can do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Councillor Trung.
That's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Trung. I too would like to pass my condolences to Amanda Stapleton's family. Tragic loss to the community. Former Councillor Stapleton, who I've known for probably over about a decade, who was always very approachable, very kind, and a strong advocate for disability groups. And she had a great passion for the community and will be surely missed. So tragic news over the last week. So yeah, passing my condolences to the family. Councillors, I had a meeting with the Federal Minister for Immigration, Citizenship, Migrant Services and Multicultural Affairs, the Honourable Alex Hawke, to discuss the ongoing settlement of Afghan refugees in Australia and more specifically in the city of Greater Dandenong. I had a meeting on Zoom and it lasted for about 30 minutes, and I think I sent a clear message to the Minister, and he was a very approachable and understood exactly where we're coming from with our community, and he will be looking into it and also getting back to us at a later stage. I also attended the Multicultural Business Ministerial Council online meeting. I also attended the MPAG to discuss the Dandenong Aquatic and Wellbeing Centre, and also I officially launched the Nourish Creativity and It Grows on Hemming Street. That was in conjunction with the students at Dandenong West Primary School who drew the art on a piece of paper or whatever, something like that, while they were in lockdown, and then the artist put it on a wall, and now these kids can actually walk past and see their work and have also put their names onto it. So I think this wall is, the kids look up to it, and I think it's a fantastic piece of art in Hemming Street. I also attended the Springboard Shopping Centre Owners Committee end of year event. As Councillor O'Reilly said, there was a presentation, and yeah, it was the first time that we had seen it. I think it was probably in the early beginnings, as Councillor Mr. Bosman said that he thinks there's no application being made, but I'm sure there'll be one coming soon. So I think it was just initial stages, but it was nice for them to share with us what they're proposing in the near future. I also attended the Copus Park interpretive signage launch and the official opening of Douglas Street streetscape upgrade with the State Minister for Suburban Development, the Honourable Sean Lim, and Lee Talamas, also with Councillor Tan. It was great to see Copus Park. I remember Copus Park probably about 10 years ago. It was probably one of the worst parks in Greater Dandenong, and to come there and inspect it just before Christmas was unbelievable to see what's happened in Copus Park and the amount of money that council has put into that area. It's actually becoming one of the nicest parts of Greater Dandenong now, and there's restaurants that are just opposite or nearby the park there, and the trees and the roses and etc. It's just a beautiful park, and I strongly recommend people visit that Copus Park. I also had a meeting with the Victoria Multicultural Commission with Councillor Lim to discuss various things happening in our multicultural community. They were very happy to listen to myself and Councillor Lim on some of Councillor Lim's aspirations of Springvale. So some great ideas, and the VMC is always happy to listen and work in conjunction with Greater Dandenong. I also attended the annual Christmas Derby, Melbourne City Football Club with Melbourne Victory. It was one of the greatest games for 2021, and look forward to the next derby. I also attended the Vietnamese community celebration at Multicultural Place in Springvale. First event I'd ever been to, Multicultural Place in Springvale. Might I suggest that we look into holding small events, because it's not a big place, Multicultural Place, but how great it was to have a small gathering, an event there, as shoppers were passing by, stopping, having a look what was going on. I strongly recommend we look into having more events there, if not, every 4 or 5 or 6 weeks. And there's something that Councillor Lim's pretty passionate about, some music in Springvale, I think that area is very lively, and I think lots of people pass by, and it's a great place for entertaining the community. So I look forward to that space in the future. We also had the pleasure as councillors, volunteers from the police force to community groups to serve lunch to the most vulnerable people at Cornerstone. I thank Cornerstone for the work they do, not only just before Christmas, but the work they do day in, day out. Very great organisation, and who have been doing some fantastic work in Greater Dandenong for over 25 years. Without them, many of our community members who need that help would be probably lost. They have great services there. I understand that they have mobile showers that come in and things like that that help people who are living on the streets, and without their support and services, there'd be more problems in Greater Dandenong. So I thank them for what they do. Also, I attended the New Year's Eve celebration in Dandenong Park, and how exciting that was to see all those young faces, the kids that who normally would have to go to bed after 9:30. So to see the fireworks and also all the entertainment that council provided, the beautiful park, Dandenong Park, with all the beautiful flowers and the landscape gardens. It was just a pleasure to walk through and mingle with the community, and all I would hear is "Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We really appreciate it." And it was probably, as Councillor Garrard and Long and Foster said, it was such we were weighing up whether we're going to go ahead with the event. And it was only 24 hours before we committed that we were going to go ahead with the event, and I'm so glad we did. And as we know, coming into 2022, the celebrations events are starting to dry up, and I hope that February is going to be a bit better month, and hopefully this Omicron will disappear and we can get on with our lives, and it'll be great. So I'm looking forward to the Australia Day celebrations and the Australia Day Awards on Wednesday. For our community, if you don't know, we've got the Summer Fun Day at Ross Reserve, and that's a family fun day from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Ross Reserve. So I look forward to seeing many of our community members there. It's an outdoor event, so please look after yourself. And that's all from me. Mr. Benny, you've got some responses of questions taken at the previous meeting?
Yes, Mayor, there were 5 councillor questions taken on notice at the last meeting. They've all been addressed and are now completed and are tabled this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Benny. Item 7, urgent business. If there is no urgent business, I declare the meeting closed at 8:12 p.m. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I think